There are a lot of different ways you can create your family if you're thinking about becoming a single mom by choice. Let's discuss some of them. For most women that become single moms by choice, they go the fertility route. They physically give birth to their children. And so this can happen multiple ways. So the first way is through IUI. This is an intrauterine insemination. This is the most cost-effective and least invasive way you can get pregnant. So what they are going to do is they are going to take the donor sperm and they are going to inject it straight into your uterus. This is a great option if you have no known fertility issues, and you're obviously going to want to go with your fertility clinic and have all your fertility testing done first. But once that's done, you can go through IUI. If IUI is not successful, or you have known fertility issues, or if you are on the older side and you have equality issues, doing IVF, which is in vitro fertilization. So basically they take out the eggs, they fertilize it outside your body and create an embryo, and then they transfer that embryo back into your body. I have a whole video coming out tomorrow for Fertility Friday about IVF, and last week I did an IUI video. So if you want more of a breakdown, go check out those videos, but watch the rest of this video first. And so this is another fertility option that you can do if you have already tried IUI or you have known fertility issues. Kind of along the same line as IVF is you can actually use donor eggs or donor embryos. So embryo donation varies legally depending on where you live. So I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but basically having donor eggs means in addition to having donor sperm, you are using somebody else's eggs. You will not be biologically related to this child, but you are able to carry this child in you if they are creating the embryos outside your body. Donor embryos, on the other hand, is when you are adopting an embryo that was created often for IVF from someone else. So someone else has leftover embryos from their IVF cycle and they are donating them. That means your child might have biological full-blood siblings out in the world and you might never know it. Whereas if you're just doing donor eggs, the chances of someone ordering the same egg donor and the same sperm donor as you, not likely. So they might have half siblings out there, but not likely having full blood siblings. With both donor eggs and donor embryos, you do have the option to also use a surrogate. So a surrogate is when somebody else is carrying the child for you. This is common for women who have issues with their uterus. I have severe endometriosis, and this was actually the first thing that I was considering because I had a friend that was willing to do a surrogacy for me. Now, we were doing it in a legally gray way that she was also going to be the egg donor. So we were doing what's called traditional surrogacy. So she was going to get pregnant via IUI. And so she would be the egg donor and carrying the pregnancy for me. But what is most common with surrogacy is what's called a gestational surrogate. So in that case, the surrogate is not biologically related to the child at all. They are going to either use your eggs to create an embryo or donor eggs to create an embryo, or you're adopting the embryo already pre-made, and then they are going to just carry the pregnancy for you. All these fertility options are great if you want to have a child from birth. If you really want a child biologically related to you, IUI, IVF are obviously the options you're going to want to go with. If you are not caring if a child is biologically related to you, but you know you want to be present for the pregnancy and you want more of a guarantee, I mean there's no guarantee with pregnancy, but more of a guarantee that that child is going to be, the pregnancy is going to result in a child that is yours, doing the surrogacy or the egg donor if you want to actually physically carry your pregnancy, and you can physically carry your pregnancy, those are all options that are fertility related. Now let's move on to the adoption side of family building. So for some people, adoption is plan A. It was my plan A, and then when I realized how hard adoption can be, it became my plan B. And then when fertility became too hard, it went back. And I kind of went back and forth between fertility stuff and adoption stuff on my journey. If you're interested in my journey, I have a whole 7.5 years of my journey, but adoption is how I ended up building my family. With adoption, you tend to have 3 different streams you can go through with your path. You have private adoption, you have public adoption, and you have international adoption. So I'm going to give you a quick summary of those 3. Private adoption is the most common adoption. This is when the potential birth mom is choosing a family while she is pregnant or just after she's given birth. The agency is going to give her a bunch of profiles to go through, and she's going to look through them all and choose the one that she feels the best connected with. Almost always you are going to be adopting the baby from birth. This is not always the case. I have heard of some scenarios where it is a little bit later, the child is a year old or 2 years old, but almost always you are adopting them from birth. There's usually a waiting period where the birth mom can revoke her consent. So this is where it can feel a little bit like you're walking on eggshells for a while, because it could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months. It all is going to vary based off your law in your area, but you're going to have a time period where mom can change her mind. Most common with private adoption, it is an open adoption. So this means you are going to have contact with the birth family. The frequency and the type of contact is going to vary, and it's going to be very dependent on what the birth mom wants and what you're comfortable with and all that. So it's going to depend a lot on what you end up agreeing on. A lot of women love this because they want a newborn baby. But there is still trauma involved. Please remember that adoption is trauma. There is never a time that there is not going to be trauma involved. So keep that in mind, that there is trauma, and your child, even though you're adopting them from a newborn, might have trauma down the road that comes up from the adoption that you might never even realize is adoption related. Private adoption has a cost, and it can get quite expensive depending on where you live. In some places, it is legal to pay the birth mom or like give her gifts. So there can be costs associated. And then there's also the risk of, even though you've given the mom money and gifts, that she changes her mind and you're out of that money. Highly recommend talking to a local agency. Talk to multiple local agencies if you have that as an option. Talk to local families and adoptees and hear their voices as well, so that way you can understand the adoption process better from their perspective. The second option is public adoption, and it comes in kind of two different strands. One is foster to adopt, and the other is just straight adoption. So foster to adopt is when you foster the children before you adopt them. With foster care, the goal is always reunification. I can't even say that word. To bring them back to their families. This is always the goal. So if you're foster to adopting, there is no guarantee that you will end up adopting them. It's just more likely, like, depending on what like your agency is like, often they will match you with a family or with a child that is not likely to be back with their family. The benefit of this is you often get them a lot younger, because you're able to have them in your home before the paperwork and the legal process has cleared for them to be eligible for adoption. If you don't want to have that risk, you can adopt directly from foster care as well. And you just tend to have an older child. With public adoption, again, like private adoption, they're going to have trauma. There is no way to get around trauma, but often with public adoption, because they are being removed from the home by the government, there tends to be more trauma. You are also going to be adopting a child that's older. Not likely going to get a newborn. You're not likely, unless you're doing foster to adopt, you're not likely to get a young child. This is a good option if you want a lower cost entry to becoming a mom, because most of the time fostering is free and adopting from foster care is free as well. You might have like some paperwork that you have to pay for, or some fees here and there, but for the most part you are not paying to adopt your child. With public adoption, it is the social worker that's going through the profiles and deciding which family will be the best match. Both public and private adoption can be really, really hard and heartbreaking, because it's kind of a roller coaster where you get your hopes up. And I mean, fertility is like that too, but you get your hopes up where you might have a match and you're excited and, oh, I might finally be there. And then poof. And for me, private adoption, oh my gosh, was so stressful. But if you really want a newborn and you don't want to do the fertility side of things, this is a much better option. It can also be significantly cheaper than doing fertility treatments. And if you have known fertility issues, it can like bypass the heartbreak of having failed fertility treatments before you try to do adoption. And lastly, international adoption. And this is how I brought my daughter home. And so international adoption, you're adopting internationally. The hard part with this is there are not a ton of countries that allow single moms by choice to adopt, but it tends to be a lot faster. For me, private adoption was going to be taking about 8 years, and public adoption, not that much faster, because they're always trying to match the child with the best family, and often to them, the best family is a 2-parent home. Whereas with international adoption, I refer to it as a deli, which kind of sounds really, really bad. But remember back in the day where you'd walk up to the deli and get like the little thingy from the thingy and it had a number on it? So imagine you get in a line, you go and get your number, and say your number is 12. And so you're in this line with all these other people, And the deli person yells out, "Who wants salami?" And they're going to go down the line from 1, 2, 3, 4. And the first person that wants salami gets the salami. Then they're going to go get the bologna. The first person down the line that wants bologna gets the bologna. This sounds horrible when I say it like this, but it is the best analogy I can use for how international adoption tends to work. Of course, this is going to vary country by country, but there is a much higher guarantee that you are going to come away with a child that matches what you are looking for. This can be one of the most expensive options, but in reality, it can actually be a lot cheaper than fertility treatments and private adoption. The one thing I will say though is if you are planning to adopt internationally, you need to be open to either an older child or a child with severe needs. So special needs, including stuff like Down syndrome, which is what I adopted, or spina bifida, or cerebral palsy. Like, you need to be open to a more severe disability. You need to be prepared that that child is not going to be a newborn. The process to get this child approved takes a while. Like, on the younger kind of side, like, I was lucky my daughter came home when she was 2. That is kind of the younger side of things, but more often than not, you're looking at like that preschooler or older. Depending on what country you're looking at, the process can take years. But I adopted from Bulgaria, and honestly, I think they are the best country for single moms by choice. They are one of the smoothest countries to adopt from, and they seem to actually like try to get their kids adopted, whereas there are some countries, I'm talking about you, India, who seem to be putting barriers in place to keep kids in orphanages longer. Obviously, if you are not open to an older child or having a child with a disability, that is totally your choice. And international adoption is not for you. A lot of the times you'll see like on the wait list for healthy, you are never going to have healthy. And if they're telling you the child is healthy, they're lying. I would not count on that child being healthy at all, because there's going to be something that's hidden that they're just kind of not letting you know. There are some shady things out there in the world with international adoption, and is it ethical? No, but unfortunately that's the reality of things, and you need to be prepared for that. Highly recommend, if you are adopting internationally, to have someone else review the medical file before you say yes. You want them to go through their medical stuff and see if there's anything like that's a little bit like confusing or that you're unsure of, because you just want to make sure that when you are saying yes to this child, you know exactly what you're getting into. With international adoption, they will have the child listed domestically before they list them internationally. So if they're being listed internationally, it's because they cannot find a home domestically for them. So that means that their needs are just too much for the people of that country. If you go on websites like Reese's Rainbow, those children's disabilities are even harder to place. They are children that they could not even match internationally on a wait list. So that means that there's no one on that list. There's no one in that lineup that is open to accepting them. And not to discourage you from looking at those lists, if you have the mental, physical, financial capabilities of raising a child with a severe disability, all the power to you. I absolutely loved looking at those lists. I just want to make you aware they're on these lists for a reason, because they could not find homes domestically or on the wait list already. With international adoption, you can be a little bit more choosy, I found, than like private adoption. Private adoption was very kind of like, oh, you need to be open to all genders, you need to be open to a lot more things. Whereas international adoption, I was extremely specific. I had a very specific age range. I only wanted a girl, and I was only open up to Down syndrome. Like, that was kind of my limit. And even within Down syndrome, it was like, I'm only open to Down syndrome without a major heart condition, for instance. So I was able to really pinpoint what I was comfortable with. Mind you, talked about it before, but there was definitely things that came up when my daughter came home that I wasn't fully prepared for, but that's okay, because yeah, that's life. But it was really hard sometimes to see other people get matches sooner. For instance, like there was a family that got in line after me, and they got matched first because they were open to a boy with Down syndrome and I wanted a girl. So when they came down the line going, who wants a boy with Down syndrome, they skipped over me because I was not it, and they went to them, which made me really doubt my intuition of wanting a daughter with Down syndrome versus having a boy with Down syndrome. And so it like messes with your mind sometimes when you're in the community and you can see other people getting matches and you're like, wait, should I have been open for that? Should I have done something differently? Should I have been okay with changing my requirements? But if you have patience and you just trust the universe and you trust the system will match you with the child that you're meant to have, that's the best advice I could give. So those are the main ways you can build your family. And like I said, there was definitely some stuff that came up when my daughter came home that I was not prepared for. So go check out this video here where I talk about what I wish I had known before my daughter came home.